Welcome everyone. This is Jordan with Food Bevy, the online community for food and beverage founders. And today I'm talking with David Birsen, Revol Snax. And David, welcome so much to the program. Love for you to start off telling me a little bit about the products and how you got started.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here too and share a little bit of our story with Revol Snax. So I'm one of the co-founders. My fiance is the other co-founder, and we started Revol Snax a couple of years ago. Essentially, we started doing a low carb diet just for our personal lives to try to get like the energy benefits. Always been interested in nutrition and just trying to more or less become the best version of myself, and got my fiance on the train as well. And realized during that time, it's really difficult to find snacks, especially packaged snacks that don't have a ton of sugar and processed carbs in them. And so we basically were just started to make stuff for ourselves at home and thought we had some pretty high quality recipes, started sharing them with friends, got really positive feedback, and eventually decided to start more or less just a little experiment of starting a real business and introducing them into the local market here in DC, which is where we live and where we produce. And that was a little over 2.5 years ago now. So we've had a winding path since then, but it's been a ride and very exciting.
So as we all know, starting a food business is a walk in the park. So tell me about what those last 2.5 years have been like. What's your journey been?
Yeah, so we started out more again like a of philosophy is how we approached it. If we get positive feedback and it works, great. If not, then whatever, we'll move on to something else. But obviously, we're here today, so the feedback was enough to encourage us to keep going down this path. But when we launched, we were basically just testing the retail market locally here in DC, and at that time, keto was still a little bit more fringe than it is today. It's certainly grown over the last couple of years, and so we were not necessarily expecting it to take off in retail. Maybe people might not understand it yet or the concept, but it did a lot better than we were expecting in like local coffee shops, independent, natural grocery stores, the channels that you typically can get a little bit easier pathway into as a new food business. So that's where we started for all of 2018, and then in the back of our minds, we knew like we're creating this business, these products to solve a specific problem. Again, for people who are trying to eat lower carb, less sugar, keto-friendly snacks. And so we knew that the e-commerce space would be pretty appealing for us because you're able to target people, whether it's through, digital marketing, paid advertising, going into Facebook community groups, Instagram influencers. We kind of knew what audience we were trying to get in front of. And so that was a big, we knew if it would work in retail, hopefully it'll work in e-commerce as well. And so 2019 is when we made the push to e-commerce. And really for the last 1.5 years, that's been our main focus, and most of the growth over that time has been in the e-commerce space.
In terms of e-commerce, how much of your business is through your own site and how much through Amazon?
So our own site's a little bit higher than Amazon. It's right around, like, just looking at e-commerce, 60-40, Shopify to Amazon.
Okay, nice. Yeah, it's interesting because I found that every brand's a little bit different depending on kind of where they're focusing and pushing.
Yeah,
Or T-Squares, we were like 15 times, our Amazon sales were like 15 times our website.
yeah. It's definitely getting traffic on Amazon's like a lot easier, right? I guess that's why you're paying their referral fee. But we started on Shopify and have always tried any of our efforts that we do marketing wise, usually try to make the final destination our Shopify site. Again, just to kind of control the customer journey as much as possible. Our brand to kind of shine through and to be able to maintain those relationships. So that's kind of our philosophy in that regard.
So I think you're really great in having a perfect target audience in terms of the keto and low carb community. It's great that you do that yourself. I actually relatively recently started eating keto as well.
Cool.
So what has that, so you have the kind of a great audience, a product that fits the market. How have you gone about really attracting people to your brand and educating them to purchase? Like, what are some of the tools or tactics that you've been able to use?
Yeah, I think it's always, at least when you're starting out, better to be probably too narrow than too broad in terms of the types of words you're using, who you imagine your target audience is. So starting out, we were very, very narrow and honed in on people who already are into keto and understand it. So we weren't approaching like the marketing aspect so much from like an educational standpoint. It seemed like a bigger hill to climb to try to convince someone that keto is the right diet for them who isn't already doing it. And in our minds, the established keto market of people who are already interested and are really just looking for high quality options was large enough that we really were just focusing on them. And so with that in mind, what worked for us, I think, is really just kind of focusing on what differentiated us from the existing options that were out there. So uncompromisingly delicious is always one of the first things that we'll say. Talking about the quality of our ingredients, the attribute that we're 100% plant-based, clean ingredients, and just trying to create carve a little bit of a niche within the existing low carb keto snack market out there. I think is kind of how we've tried to penetrate it and get some of those people who are already into it, already purchasing keto snacks on the internet.
I love that. Having a narrow focus of who that target demographic is and honing in your messaging to them and then expanding it out. I think that's great advice. And if you could give one piece of advice to another founder starting out, I think that was a great one, but if you can give another piece of advice, what would you tell them?
I mean, it's a roller coaster, and there's definitely been some days where we're not as optimistic as others. I mean, that's been a big part in just our personal journeys of learning how to manage emotions and focusing on what's our purpose, what's our brand really trying to achieve, and not necessarily get so caught up in the ups and downs of everyday transactions and sales numbers. And everyone talks about being data driven and all of that, but I think sometimes you can watch things a little bit too closely and lose sight of the bigger picture. And we've certainly been guilty of that at times. So yeah, I mean, it's not an easy journey, but certainly a rewarding one. When you kind of look back on the change and the impact that you're trying to have. So that would probably be my advice, is to try to zoom out as much as possible.
Zoom out. I love it. Well, David, thanks so much for being on today. It's been a great conversation and best of luck as you're wrapping up the year.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.